Am I the a-hole? My husband leaves the shower running for 30 to 60 minutes before using it, if he uses it. My husband has a very stressful work from home job. He often gets calls and has to answer them with a few minutes notice. As a result, he will run the shower for 30 minutes or longer before getting in. He turns the shower temperature all the way up and fills the house with hot steam. We have a small bathroom with a broken fan, so the moisture buildup has literally caused our door to warp and our shitty quality cabinets to fall apart. I am currently holding the cabinets together with Gorilla Glue. I had fixed the door by sanding it down a few months ago, but the constant exposure to steam in a closed environment is causing it to warp again. We also live in a high desert, so it really makes me uncomfortable to waste that much water. It also makes our entire house, one floor, really hot and humid to the point I have to open windows in the winter. He says it's because he needs to be able to shower at a moment's notice. But we have a modern, tankless hot water heater. So it literally takes 10 seconds for the water to heat up. He insists I'm being neurotic by getting on his case about water, which in his words, is basically free. We pay $30.40/month for it, but we share the bill with other home members so our actual use doesn't affect the cost as directly. So, I make him turn it off after 30 minutes without using it. Am I the a-hole for forcing my nieces and nephews to stay on their cots for 1.5 hours? I am a stay-at-home mom to Elizabeth, 4, and I have 2 nieces, 2 and 3, and 2 nephews, 3 and 4. From my 3 siblings, they all live close to us. My siblings were having a hard time finding childcare for my nieces and nephews, and the topic came up of me watching them. I have all 4 of them from 8:30 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. They each pay me $200 per kid per week and they bring their own food. Elizabeth goes to preschool in the mornings. We play at the house in the mornings, walk to Elizabeth's school at 11, play in the park next to the school for a half hour, come home and eat lunch, then everyone naps from 12:30 to 2. We have 5 nap mats in the play area. Everyone has a mat and everyone has a sleeping bag. We read a story, I turn off the lights and shut the blinds, turn on lullaby music, and use that time to start cleaning up. Now, I have a rule, if you do not want to nap, you don't have to, but you don't get to get up and play. You either sleep, read, or play quietly on your mat until 2. My older nephew has really been pushing back on this. He gets up every time I turn around and tries to be as loud as possible while on his mat. I told my brother and Sil about this and they said he doesn't like naps and to let him play. I refused because if they think they can choose between napping and playing, none of them will nap, plus he'll wake up the other kids. They're saying I'm being unfair by forcing him to stay on his mat for the entire 1.5 hours and that it's not developmentally appropriate. I'm considering telling them to find someone else to watch him because of this. Am I the a-hole for asking my sister if I could bring my baby to her wedding? My 29F sister, 26F, is getting married in a few weeks and she sent me an invitation. She wants a child-free wedding, and since I have no one to watch my baby I wouldn't be able to go, so I asked her if she could make an exception so I could go. I didn't push her to let or anything, I simply asked and she went off on me. She called me an asshole for rejecting her invite and making my whole life revolved around my son. I told her I had no one to watch my son so I wouldn't be able to go, but it's also fine that she doesn't want to make an exception. She suggested that I ask neighbors to watch him, but I didn't really like that idea because I'm new to the neighborhood and don't really know anybody. I told her that and she blew up at me and said I'm supposed to support her on her day. Am I the a-hole for what I said to my cousin? I, 16F, lost my parents and left leg to a drunk driver when I was 5. My maternal grandparents got custody of me because my aunts and uncle already had young children / didn't have the time and money for a traumatized disabled child. My paternal half-brother went to his mom permanently because our dad's parents died young and I couldn't see him as much. I don't remember much about the process because I was in the hospital whilst all of the legal stuff was sorted out, but it was difficult and I really struggled adjusting when I was younger. My Aunt Mary is the one who is relevant. She has 2 children, Derek, 13, and Sarah, 16, and we all go to the same school. For as long as I've been living with my grandparents, she's had a problem with their favoritism. Because I see them all the time because I live with them, Derek and Sarah should get special days every weekend that I'm not allowed to go on because I see them all the time. If my half-brother visited us for Christmas, Derek and Sarah should get to have friends over that my grandparents will look after. If my prosthetic leg was expensive, Derek and Sarah should get equally expensive gifts. Derek and Sarah are just as entitled even though our other cousins are normal about things. Sarah and I are in 6th form now and share a common room when we previously wouldn't see each other much at all. I recently needed a new leg because of a growth spurt over the summer and I just had an appointment last weekend to have it fitted. It meant that my grandparents couldn't come to a lunch Mary was organizing because it was too long of a journey to get back in time for them at their age. Sarah has been complaining about it all week because she was going to show off a trophy she got at a gymnastics competition for the school at a major competition she was working towards all summer. I get that it's a big deal, but she's been calling me spoiled and bratty to all of her friends and anyone who will listen. None of them really care, but no one is telling her to stop either. On Friday morning she was complaining again during a study period because I'll be having another appointment on Saturday even though we're going to lunch with her family on Sunday. She said that I needed to learn that other people's achievements matter and I should learn to share attention and stop being such a baby. No one on our table told her to stop and she was going to keep going, so I called her a narcissistic brat who wouldn't last a day in my life. She went crying to her parents and now there's been a bunch of arguing in our family over how involved my grandparents are with my cousins. My grandparents are on my side, but I want to know if they should be. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my neighbor's son for playing in my spare wheelchair? A little backstory: I was born paralyzed and unable to walk and I need a wheelchair to get around. I mostly use a power wheelchair and I have a spare manual wheelchair when I can't use my power chair, like when I go to my sister's house or in older buildings that are very handicapped accessible and my power chair doesn't fit. So Thanksgiving afternoon I'm having Thanksgiving at my sister's house and heading out the door and I go out to my garage where I keep my manual chair and I see my neighbor's son and his friend playing in my wheelchair and being very rough with. They were both riding on it and they tipped over backwards. I was angry and yelling at them that my wheelchair wasn't a toy and that I needed it, and they just laughed and continued playing with it. So several minutes go by of me trying to get them to stop playing in my wheelchair. They were in their backyard that I can't get to, so I try calling their parents to try and help, but they don't answer, so I have to go all the way around the block to get to the front of my neighbor's house. When I get to the front of my neighbor's house and I'm finally able to tell them the situation, my neighbors say it isn't a big deal and I shouldn't be so angry, but by this time it's been several minutes and I'm supposed to be at my sister's house with food, and I inform my neighbors that I need my wheelchair to go to my sister's. I finally got my manual chair and I tell my neighbor I'm going to call the police next time, and my neighbor said I was being a sensitive a-hole, but I don't think I am.